So I plugged in my webcam and it didn't work. So I unplugged it, plugged it in, couldn't get it to work. So I had this other webcam that I bought. It's kind of a no-name webcam, you know? I think it was made in China.
Or Moscow.
And I got it because it was cheap. And I plugged it in, and all of a sudden, I looked like a colorized Ted Turner movie.
It works great.
It looks terrible.
What you'll find is a great feature of that camera is there's no turning it off. So
it's wonderful. It's actually 4K, so you get twice the size of crap. Hey guys, what's up?
Hey Carl, how you doing?
Hey Carl.
Another exciting week in the world of security hacks. I'm
always exciting.
Hoping
always.
For our podcast's sake, not for our listeners' sake.
Right? Maybe it's good things. Maybe there's good cyber things.
I'm looking forward to the last story, but we'll wait for that. We'll make that the teaser.
A teaser.
Let's start with Cisco. What are they doing?
Cisco.
Yeah, what happened with Cisco?
Cisco warns.
They scored a 10, a perfect 10.
Right? It's like the Olympics of failing, and they scored a perfect 10. Yay!
Is it a coincidence that Cisco rhymes with disco?
And they're both dead?
Which died in the 80s.
No, Cisco's got a pretty good track record. They got a big surface area like Microsoft. They've got a lot of products, and there are a lot of targeted products. But when they fail, they fail epically.
Yeah,
like case in point.
So what happened?
They have a critical vulnerability that has a perfect or totally imperfect, I guess I'm not sure how to say that, CVSS score of 10.0, which basically means it's as bad as it gets.
Wow.
Right. Means it's wide open. Yeah. And this is for their wireless LAN controllers. For all of you going and running around right now to unplug all your Cisco gear. First off, if you're a home user and you're listening to this show because you're concerned about personal security and that sort of stuff, welcome. And you probably don't need to worry about it because Cisco's usually these types of devices are in large organizations.
Way to bury the lead. Wow. So he's got them on the seat of the tip of their seat saying, and if you're a home user, welcome.
Thank you for coming.
Tell a friend.
But if you manage like corporate wireless devices and that sort of stuff, it's a possibility you're using their wireless LAN controllers. If you are using the 3504, 5520 or the 8540 wireless controllers, there is a critical vulnerability that Patrick just mentioned. That if you're, and I won't throw out too much detail because this can drone on to weird places, but your MAC filtering radius compatibility mode is set to other, then that means anybody can log into those systems with a remote code vulnerability.
Without a valid password.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you should just create your own credentials, basically.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. So there's a couple workarounds. If you don't feel like patching, there is an advisory from Cisco. There is a patch. But if you don't feel like patching or you have a massive infrastructure, then...
If you don't feel like patching, seek help.
Hey, listen, some people can't apply patches immediately. It's critical infrastructure.
Dude, that's 101. It's the only thing we require. I mean, it's table stakes. There's really nothing. If it plugs in, it needs to be maintained, and that patching is how you maintain it.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with you. There may be circumstances where you can't get the patch in immediately, but you should be unplugging things you can't patch immediately then.
To quote Mr. T, I pity the fool that keeps a Cisco wireless router at their data center unpatched.
Mr. T, when was the last time you saw Mr. T?
Pity the fool.
In a movie or anything?
I don't know. But, we were talking about the 80s.
In the 80s? Yeah. Come on, the 80s was fantastic.
Disco died in the 80s. Cisco dies in 2022.
We're dating ourselves, because who else would date us?
Hey, seriously, folks.
So this is bad. This is a patching lesson.
Yeah.
And it also shows that, Cisco's hardware is not cheap. It's very high end, but even the high end stuff can have really catastrophic vulnerabilities. And Cisco might go months without having any problems, and they may be the top of the game, but you got to keep track. You got to pay attention. If you're not listening to a podcast like this, you need to be reading the news to see what the vulnerabilities are.
So, to the second story, I'm really just waiting with all the evil stuff that Putin is doing right now. I'm really just waiting for some major hacks to come his way in, ransomware style. Like, okay, you ransomware the world, we're going to ransomware you.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened with Russia and ransomware?
The Conti ransomware gang got taken down and all their software was leaked.
Right.
So now NB65, which is another hacking group, have decided to turn the tables and use the Conti ransomware, regenerated new keys and such, and start attacking Russian entities. And Russian entities haven't been impervious to attack, but they haven't been focus of attack. So you could say that American companies are pretty used to getting attacked by ransomware, and they've done it. I don't know that the corporate entities in Russia are nearly as hardened as the Western ones are right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how successful this is.
Don't you think Russia's entities would be hardened to Russian hacking?
No. What's actually really weird, well, not weird, I guess, if you think about it, but if you tear apart a lot of the ransomware attacks that come out of Russia, most of them, when they run, look for a Russian character keyboard attached to the computer.
And then they don't do anything.
If it is attached, it just kills itself. It doesn't run. So that way,
I can't confirm or deny whether we've had Russian keyboards attached to servers.
I think you just confirmed it, Pat. Just saying.
I can't confirm or deny.
It sounds like you're confirming it, my friend.
I studied Russian. I can actually use a Cyrillic keyboard.
There you go.
Yeah. I the only word I can read in Cyrillic is pectopot, which means restaurant.
There you go.
What was the first thing you think I learned in Russian, knowing that I was planning on fighting the Cold War?
Where is the bathroom?
Yeah, right.
Shoot him.
Oh, shoot him.
Because if they say that, you want to know.
You want to be the first guy to know.
Yeah, you want to be the first one that sinks in. So look at China. Look at China right now with the coronavirus. They've tried to be zero corona, and now we're limping along, doing what we can, trying to live our best lives, and they're in lockdown still, and they're suffering horrible economic and social strife. That which does not kill you makes you stronger, and that's unfortunately true of ransomware. We are stronger because we've been attacked. Now, I wouldn't recommend it, but it'll be interesting to see how well Russian entities fare, because getting ransomware is always a bad thing, but getting ransomwared by companies that probably don't want to give you the keys even if you paid them.
So you said that this Conti ransomware hack looks for a Russian keyboard. The people who use this against Russian entities, did they remove that check?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know that Conti actually has that piece of code. It's just something that we've seen in the past.
Yeah.
Have you really looked at the Conti stuff yet, Dwayne?
I've dug through the Conti stuff, but actually most of what I was digging into in the Conti stuff was to be able to re-weaponize it for our red team engagements, but B was more
in a friendly way.
In a friendly, in a good way.
You're hired by customers to penetrate their forces.
Yeah,
and if you can get in with ransomware, great.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So when looking through this type of code, you want to defang it, especially if you're going to use it on a red team engagement or something along those lines. And B, looking more for patterns. Like, what do they look for first? What do they encrypt first? That sort of stuff. Just to start evolving, like, how do you protect against those things?
I also like to have videos of ransomware ripping through systems so people kind of get an appreciation for how much they don't want it. People hear about ransomware, but until you see it, like, trickle through and rip up all the files.
It's the awesomeness.
Oh, you're sick. Seek help. So the next article is by one of my favorite authors.
Okay.
And co-host of this podcast.
Yeah.
Carl Franklin. Carl, so you wrote up tips to avoid getting scammed online. You mentioned it last show. And it's great because it starts with the key understanding, which is it's social engineering. It's a con. It's a trick.
Right.
And it's magic. Anytime you try to, you get somebody's confidence, you can only be betrayed by somebody you trust. And so the crux of it is any message, Facebook, text message, email, in person, it's all scams if they're trying to get you to do something based on exploitation of human emotion and human behavior. And so I think you really nailed it. And that includes ransomware. It includes pretty much everything. So that's
Yeah.
a good article. You also bring up the QR code thing, which we talked about when we were in Vegas together.
Yeah. Everything I brought up is stuff that I've learned from talking to you guys.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I could trust QR codes. They're just too convenient.
Yeah, I have a kind of an unwritten rule that, if you're in a restaurant and there's a menu stuck in the napkin holder, you're like a Chili's or whatever, it's got the Chili's logo and it's got all the Chili stuff and it's laminated and it looks like it hasn't been tampered with. Chances are you're going to pull up the Chili's menu when you take a picture of that.
And I'll make sure that when you click on my QR code, you'll get the Chili's menu eventually.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, if it was a scam, but if you see it going through several redirects,
I don't know if you'd even see it.
There you go. See, as we haven't given hacker advice in a long time. So listen, hackers. If you
okay. Career advice.
if you
Do
want
your
career
transfers
advice,
on the back end. Don't send it back to the browser, right?
Maybe like little ads and that sort of stuff on the side so that you still go to the main menu, but the ads pull from your...
I've considered making QR code stickers that point to a site, and when they go there, say, why did you go here? This is a bad idea. I could have done bad things.
Yep.
I didn't.
One of our listeners saw QR codes posted up at their college.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it must have been a test or something like that by the psychology majors, to see who would do it. But they were literally, taped to the walls, printed out on a laser jet or whatever, and, said, go here for something. And so my friend made up QR codes that point to security this week. And it says, go here instead. Security this week.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. So what's next? 7-zip?
7-zip. 7-zip.
So excited about this one.
I am. You know what? I love a good privilege escalation. I mean, an RCE is nice, like a fine RCE that's been around, right?
Yeah,
that's
a
nice Chianti.
A nice Chianti.
Right? But I'll take a Privesk. So 7-zip, for those of you who have used compressed files, so zip files, right?
Mm-hmm.
RAR files. There's all sorts of different extensions of files, gun zip files.
Can't we all just get along and just say zip is the only one? Get rid of all these other ones.
Zip is zip is zip.
Come on. Why do we need 7-zip? Why are there 7 different zipping algorithms?
But this one goes to 7, so that's good.
I get it. Because
what's
they all
interesting?
Came up different.
Yeah, they all do different things. Some of
cultures.
them are better compression.
Some started with Linux.
Security.
Yeah,
some of them are Linux. Some of them, some of them aren't even zips. They're tarballs, but 7-zip supports it
What'd
anyways.
you call me?
You heard him.
Tarball. So the 7-zip issue, if you have 7-zip installed, and this thing's gotten a lot of press over the last week. So there's a privilege escalation. So if you have 7-zip installed, somebody can run a particular exploit on your computer that gets them to be from a normal user to a system user, getting access to the entire system. Now that sounds dangerous, and Privesks usually are. And the reason this is in 7-zip, and it's a convoluted way to get there. We're going to post an article. But in 7-zip, if you open up 7-zip and go to the help menu, it opens up a dialog that allows you to drag on top of it an ActiveX control that then runs as system.
Whoa.
It's been a while since we've seen ActiveX.
ActiveX has been pulled out of publication since 2013. So it's an older artifact, right? Mm-hmm. How many people are going into the help and dragging and dropping stuff into the help to see what spins up? And there was a GitHub article or GitHub proof of concept that shows this. But for the average listener, how worried should you be? Because you will see this hit the market. You're going to see people talking about this for the next couple of weeks. How worried should you be? Probably not that worried, honestly. If anybody sends you an email and tells you to open 7-zip and then open help and then drag and drop a file on top of it, you don't do that.
Well, it's the about 7-zip modal dialog, right? It's not the help file itself.
Correct. Yeah.
If you have the Cisco hardware that's got the vulnerability and this, fix that one next month.
Yeah.
Fix this one next month and that one now.
Yeah.
So because that one's like your front door is open and your jewelry box is standing on the doorstep. This one's, hey, in your basement, your safe is, already clicked to 2 of the numbers.
At least it requires like an intentional move, right? By
It does.
the human.
Privilege-esque is always, it requires a foothold on the system, and that's not always guaranteed.
There's no patch for it either. I went to 7-Zip and because I have it installed, and I went to their website, and the last update was in 2021.
You're right. There's no patch right now. I mean, honestly, like I love the article that Carl put out because it points to social engineering, and this is a great example of if somebody can engineer you to do something, to tell you to perform some action, download some file, run it, whatever,
right?
Then you're at risk, right? So you just have to be careful about what you're doing and what you're clicking on and know why you're doing it. And if somebody's having you do weird stuff with 7-Zip, this may be why.
Can we sidebar to one of the weirdest social engineering things that has ever happened, that happened quite a bit in the last couple of years? Did you guys ever hear about self-kidnapping?
What?
Excuse me?
So there's a phenomenon that happened it was happening down in Mexico and in Middle America, Central America, where a gang would, like, let's say Carl and his wife were down in, Cancun or someplace like that, and they get a hold of his phone number.
Yep.
And they text him and say, we see you, we have your wife. If you don't go do exactly what we say right now, you'll never hear from her again.
Right.
And they instruct him to go to a hotel, drop his phone in a trash can. He goes into the hotel room that's already set up for him, paid with cash, and there's a cell phone there, and or a phone there. And they say, if you call anybody, you're done. And basically, they just kidnapped Carl. They just got Carl to kidnap himself.
Right.
Wow.
On the promise that they have someone else that he cares about. Right. And they've also disconnected him from everyone he knows.
Didn't we talk about this on Security This Week? Or maybe it was just you and me talking.
If we did, it was very early show.
No, I don't think we did.
That is the ultimate that is the social engineering, because they're convincing you.
Right.
And my default philosophy, maybe it's because of the military, maybe it's because I'm Irish, I don't know, is pull the trigger. I call bluffs all the time.
Pull the trigger.
If you say do this or else I'll pull the trigger, go ahead. Be my guest. I'm not going to play your game. You're going to kill me anyways when it's done. I've seen too many of these movies. So I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of doing what you want.
It kind of reminds me of those, you go to a website and there's a legit thing, or maybe semi-legit or whatever, that comes up and, pops up in your browser, used to anyway, before the browsers got hip to this. And it says, your PC has been infected with a virus. Click here to clean it. Yeah. And what in fact is happening by clicking here to clean it, you're actually installing the malware. Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting how, but it's all about trust. What do you trust? What don't you trust?
Right.
And you don't want to be cynical of everything, but you need to question. You need to, because that's where you avoid phishing and everything else.
By the way, if you do have malware on your PC, do you guys still recommend Malwarebytes as the way to get rid of it? I've been using Malwarebytes for a long, and I put it on a stick, and when my mother-in-law's PC gets infected, I go over, I install it with a stick, they quarantine everything, everything's fine.
I noticed you said when, not if.
Yeah, when, because I'm waiting. It's on a USB stick, which is now infected because I plugged it into her computer.
Yeah. No, Malwarebytes is good. It's a decent utility for looking for, like, Defender is awesome for looking for really malicious, like, ransomware and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But there's a gray area in between we're destroying your computer and we're just trying to track everything that you're doing on the web, and we're stealing cookies and that sort of stuff, which Defender may not find. So Malwarebytes is really good at looking specifically at the browsers.
And some of these tools that people install, they think they're helpful, like weather bugs and things like that.
System optimizers.
System optimizers are the best.
Oh my God.
Or the worst.
They're Dwayne's favorite.
Yeah. They are my favorite. Vector to attack a company. All right. So,
or the system optimizer. So PC running too slow, download our software to clean it up and make it fast.
I mean,
Yeah.
technically, that's probably a rudimentary ransomware. They're holding the performance of your system hostage. They're not explicitly saying that they're doing it, but that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Is their prompt is probably got weights in it and it's chewing up your performance, and so they can deliver what they're promising. It's just that they caused it.
Yeah. So if you think you're infected, first thing, turn off your computer. Second thing, go to another computer, download Malwarebytes, put it on a USB stick.
Yeah.
And
have you tried turning it off and turning it on again?
Every day, my friend.
Every day.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, this should be. Hey, you know what? That brings up a good thing, Carl.
Yeah.
Listen, this is a weekly podcast.
Right.
I want our listeners, every time you listen to this podcast, when you're done, reboot your phone every week.
That's a good
idea. You should be rebooting your phone every week. So you listen to your Security This Week podcast, reboot your phone, just make sure it's all nice and clean.
Not during the podcast. After the podcast.
No. And it's not because we're deploying anything while you're listening to the podcast. I'm just saying it's a good reminder.
Now everyone thinks that's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, you don't drive and use your phone. All right.
All right, so let's talk about this story. U.S. and allies warn of Russian hacking threat to critical infrastructure. Now, we've heard this, warning from the U.S. government before.
Yeah, this kind of gets the Captain Obvious award to me.
Yeah, and it's honestly, so Russia's been in the middle of critical infrastructure systems in the United States many times.
Mm-hmm.
I told you about the book I was listening to, and in that book they talk about Russian APTs being in the middle of critical infrastructure. So it's not new at all. But you do have to have a heightened sense of awareness when
because they're more likely to do damage now rather than sit and wait for the time. This is their time to do damage.
Yeah.
This is why we're seeing a lot of the defanging operations is, Russia infiltrated these networks to sit and wait and exfiltrate data, but they also sat there so that they could cause us pain when they wanted to. Guess what? They want to now.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, and on top of that, I believe it's either today, I think it was today within the last few hours, that Russia announced, you know what? We've been holding back the ransomware gangs because we've been working with the United States. Not anymore. We're going to just let them be.
I think that's going to be a hollow threat like everything else, because if they could, take down our grid, it would be down. Mm-hmm. Again, they've suffered the problem of they made money off of the attacks on us, and they've been a fly, around us, but they've kind of made us immune to malaria over the years, and they've gotten us trained to protect ourselves. We're more protected than we think. We still have to keep our eyes open, but they're not 10 feet tall as we say in the military. We often make our enemies seem 10 feet tall, so we make sure we can beat them. And it's becoming clearly obvious that they're not the cyber superpower in the world. They're just the cyber bully.
Yeah. At the end of this article, and I know we talked about this before, the U.S. government is also offering a reward of up to $10 million for information on malicious cyber activities conducted by state-backed hacking groups targeting the country's critical infrastructure sectors. Guys, are you on this?
I know what I'm doing this weekend.
Are you on track to get that 10 mil?
I'll drop a couple names. We'll throw.
Can
it
you
out
drop
there.
a couple of mil my way when you get paid?
On it,
friends.
Absolutely.
They're like the lottery, the family lottery agreement, which, by the way, in my
which
first
has destroyed
marriage,
many a family.
Oh, totally. In my first marriage, I was told by my wife that everyone in the family, uncles, aunts, grandmother, grandparent, have all agreed to share lottery winnings if one of them hits. And I was like, no, that's not happening. First of all, if I get it, it's my ticket. Number two, I don't want the drama, right?
Right. Oh, it's so much drama.
I don't buy lottery tickets anyway, so who am I talking about? What do I care?
Nah. You want money just to play ransomware. All right.
No, that's you we're talking about, I think.
All right. So you ready for the big story?
What's the big story, Patrick?
So the government, Congress.
Wait. What about before we go into Congress?
Are you going to talk about psychic identity cards?
Yeah. Are you going to talk about quantum?
I was gonna.
Before we go into quantum, let's talk about something that's real.
Oh, just sour grapes because you lost the qubit game.
I did. Ah, I didn't. I don't even want to talk about it.
All right. So you're talking about psychic signatures in Java.
Yeah, so this one will be quick. This
All
is CVE 2022, so this year, of course, 21449. And what this is there is a flaw in the ECDSA signature process for the currently released version of Java. What that means is, for all of you developers out there, if you are signing JWT, which are JWT tokens, which are tokens that allow you to figure out what type of authentication and authorization a user has to your website,
Also
SAML
known as
assertions, there you go.
JWT
SAML
tokens.
assertions, OIDC ID tokens.
If you don't know what we're
anything
talking
along
about,
those
don't
lines.
worry about it.
Yeah, if you're a developer though, and you're signing those things using the standard ECDSA signature algorithm, you need to go out and patch, because right now there's the ability for you to show a blank signature, and then Java just assumes it's signed properly. So you can actually create your own tokens and all sorts of stuff. So this is actually a pretty damaging bug. So you will want to go out. You want to make sure you're patched against this.
And the article talks about the Doctor Who trick. So
Right? Yeah, that's true. So you'll see an article from us with Doctor Who, which is nice.
it's like the Jedi mind trick.
Before we get to Patrick's thing, there's this great story on Radiolab called Null. Radiolab is a great podcast, by the way. You should definitely check it out and go through the archives, because the older ones are even better. And so Null is about, nulls in programming, right? Which isn't a string. It's a data type.
It's
it means
unknown
nothing.
value.
Yeah, an unknown value. So the story starts with this guy who, he's a IT guy, and he's playing around, and he goes to register a vanity plate for his car, and he puts in NULL, no. And he gets his plate. And then he starts getting parking tickets. Everybody's parking ticket when the ticket was issued, the officer did not mark down the license plate. So it became a null in the system. And the programmer, instead of saying, if not equal to null, the data type, put it in quotes.
Oh.
So literally those tickets all go to that license plate because
That's awesome.
Yeah, he had over $10,000 in unpaid parking tickets.
That's awesome.
Talk about having to, un-F that.
good luck proving it.
Right, explaining to a judge.
So you see, Your Honor,
Yeah.
the null is a special data type.
Forget about the judge. How about the DMV when you try to call up, right?
Right.
And I'm sorry, can you hold,
But they're all programmers, right?
yeah.
Of course, who isn't?
Got to be a programmer to work at the DMV.
And then there's another family whose last name is Null, N-U-L-L.
Oof.
And ever since the 80s, when personal computers and all that stuff, they've had all sorts of problems.
I can imagine.
Anyway.
Well, I can truly say that I don't know the nulls.
Oof. Wow.
But these the companies they dealt with, the best thing that they could offer was just to change their last name.
Oof. Wow.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
All right. Well,
wow.
Yeah, I'm going to put a link to that story. Okay, Patrick, the floor is yours. Tell us about Congress.
Okay, well, you guys are treating this like a dental appointment. So,
oh my God! It's because I don't understand most of it. But go ahead.
Actually, I ran out of time. I have a dentist appointment right now, so I can't listen to this.
So, what the article, the story, is that Congress wants a plan for post-quantum hacking threats for federal IT systems. And so, without getting into too much of the weirdness. It's called the Quantum Computing Cybersecurity Preparedness Act, and I think it's a good idea. It's a great idea.
It's a great idea.
Why is it a great idea? Let's talk about that. So quantum computing is something that's in its infancy. It's starting to happen. And without making this a 3-hour episode, you can check out my podcast, Entangled Things, to learn all about quantum computing. But it's coming. Quantum computing is in the infancy, but it's starting to happen. There are actual quantum computers. IBM has a 127 qubit quantum chip they're selling.
Patrick, let me see if I can simplify a quantum computer.
I love to see you try.
Listeners, this is where if you were to ask some random bit for an answer, it would go out and drive itself into multiple dimensions of space-time and come back with a probability. Am I close?
I think the reality, I think the problem is you actually know more about it than you should to describe it to simple people.
I think it sounds like we're in Doctor Who land.
I feel like I'm getting scammed.
So the thing about quantum computers that makes them more powerful in some areas is that they can, I can take bits and put them together, and I can make, values, but the bits can only occupy one value at a time. And so if I have 10 bits, then there's 1,000 possible values for those 10 bits, and they can only occupy one of those values at a time. And that's normal. That's the way the world works.
Right.
But at the quantum level, we have really crazy weirdness that Einstein didn't like, but that ended up turning out to be true, which allows us to evaluate all possible values simultaneously. So we get this parallel boost. Well, what it all boils down to is one of the only working, fundamentally proven algorithms for quantum computing is Shor's algorithm. Peter Shor, 1994, came up with an algorithm with a quantum computer that would allow us to break the math that underlies all asymmetric encryption that we're using today.
Right.
So Diffie-Hellman, elliptical curve, RSA. And so we're not at a point now where a quantum computer exists that can break RSA with a 2048 length key or even a 1024-bit key. But we're not far away. We're probably less than a decade away by some estimates, including my own.
Mm-hmm.
So why do we worry about this now? Well, we worry about this now because there are secrets that need to be secret longer than 10 years. And what an attacker can do is start listening to the data, storing the encrypted data, and just decrypt it later once the quantum computer can let them crack it. And so if you have a secret that only needs to be secret for the next 3 months, no big deal. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But if you have secrets like, trade secrets and patent things that you decided not to patent because you don't want to put them out in the public space, and you want them to stay secret by the end of this decade, then you need to do this. And the government is first in the list there. There's already reports of China storing massive amounts of data that's encrypted that they can't read yet in anticipation of being able to read it later. And so that's why this is happening. So what you're going to hear a lot about is NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, is already working on a post-quantum encryption recommendation. And they've already got finalists like NTRU, which is a lattice-based. So lattice-based encryption uses geometry instead of algebra. Geometry is much harder to break.
Don't worry, Dwayne. There's only one person left listening now.
Right? I'm sorry, I fell asleep. Where are we? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Fine.
No.
I wish you were. But it's dense stuff. All I want to do is put on the radar of everybody that they're going to start hearing more and more about post-quantum cryptography.
Yeah.
And when the NIST recommendations come out, which they should come out sometime early this year, they should have already been out. It's something worth checking out because it's on the plate for everyone in the technical world sometime in the next 5 to 10 years to go through and swap out all of their public-private key cryptography with something else. And so it's going to be like a little mini Y2K with a less certain due date, like a mystery due date, because we don't know when we're going to get a quantum computer that can break this stuff.
Right.
But it's already become somewhat urgent.
The scary thing is that when the bad guys have the quantum computers to break the encryption of all the people that don't have quantum computers. Now, I probably what's going to happen is access to quantum computers is going to be limited at first. So the majority of the populace is still going to be using their desktops and their phones, whatever, that aren't quantum computers.
Right.
And so the challenge is in that perfect storm time frame when the advantage goes to the quantum computers to break everything else, and everything's going to be hella insecure. And I guess that's what these guys are.
That's what we're trying to get ahead of. We're trying to get ahead of it so that the world transitions.
Because if I have a quantum computer, I can use that for security, just as the bad guy can use it to try to penetrate my security.
Yep.
You can. There are mechanisms. that you can use quantum computer called quantum key distribution that'll let you do very, very secure communications. The good news is that you already have a way forward. We already have things we can implement before quantum computers, because the new encryption standards I'm talking about, they don't require a quantum computer. They're just new encryption mechanisms that are shown to be quantum safe.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
So you're going to hear about this more and more.
Yeah.
You heard it here first, maybe. We'll nibble at this topic because it's so mind numbing.
You heard it here first. You understood it somewhere else.
So, we're hoping to, help people like eventually understand this, but it's a tough topic.
Yeah, it is.
It is a tough
Dwayne's
topic.
a smart guy. He's listening to me drone on it. I spend a lot of time on this to understand it. It's never going to be trivially easy to understand.
Says the guy who went to MIT for quantum courses.
I just took a couple of courses there.
I'm concerned anytime Patrick uses the word drone. So
right? You expect the Big Bang afterwards?
Yeah, I got to look out the window.
By the way, Carl, can you open that window for me?
All right, you guys.
On that note,
that's a show. We'll,
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for everything, and have a good week. We'll see you next week.
You too. Thanks.
sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.